This project began when I found myself alone with 100 meters of cotton cord and apparently a month of excess free time. I had this design in mind for a long time. The idea was born from a lot of cord that I had, and I had like, I don't know, 50 pieces of 1 meter each that were left from a previous project. Here are the ideas I had in mind when I started this design. I had drawn this, inspired by Ola Johnson's design. I thought it would be nice for it to have a short collar like this and maybe a front opening. So I learned how to make those Chinese nuts. Then, how is it made? Well, first of all, I drafted the pattern of this sleeveless top. I sewed together those two tulle layers into an entire wearable top, wearable but super transparent. And then I started sewing the cord on it. So I started filming this video about the time I started doing the back. I had already done the whole front part and I had left the back blank, and to be honest, I didn't know yet what the back design was going to be. I knew that I found the front part a little too dense and I wanted the back to be less dense and have more contrast in the feeling, accentuating even more the sheer and the dense areas so it would look interesting from a distance. Once my drawing of the design was done, I had to trace it on my paper pattern. So to do that, I just put my drawing next to the pattern and tried to replicate my design at scale. To connect it with the front part of the pattern, which is separate from the front, I traced the line with a tracing wheel so that it would be visible on the back, and then connected the front and back together to make the lines flow from the back to the front. I could then finish tracing the lines. At this step, I could really refine the sort of curve I wanted. Once I had traced all the main lines on the paper pattern, it was time to thread trace it on my actual garment. So for that, first of all, I folded it in half so I could mark the center back line. Then I would pin the paper pattern onto the fabric garment, and with a white thread I could trace the main lines with long basting stitches. This process took some time, but it was very easy to follow afterwards, so I'm glad I decided to do this. Once it was all traced, I could remove the paper pattern from the fabric, and then it was start sewing the cord onto the fabric. To sew the cord, I decided to do it from the back because since the tulle is transparent, I could clearly see what I was doing, and also it made sure that the stitches would not show on the outside. So here you can see me stitching the back patiently. This was by far the longest part of the process. Sewing those main lines and then filling in with different types of designs, either the curves or the lines. This is also something I could do comfortably in a sofa or bed over a movie or something, so this was really nice to do. Each curve was sewed very patiently with many tiny hand stitches along it. For the critical parts, such as the center back, I would pin the cord in advance to make sure that each curve would lay in place exactly the way I wanted it to be. But for the rest, I did not mean anything and just went freestyle. Because I was using several different lengths of my cord, I had to connect them. So first of all, I would separate the core of the cord and cut it so that the cord would be empty and leave space for the connection. Then I would stitch it very tight so that it takes as little space as possible. And then I would take the end of my new cord that I want to connect to the first one, do the same process of removing the cord and then making it wider. I would then sew the two of them together very tightly, and it ended up looking quite discreet when it was finished. Towards the end of my work, I realized that the front was a little more flimsy than the rest, and this was because I had not sewn together the end of the loops with the straight cord. To do that, I would just pierce with my needle both cords and sew them together like this. When I had finally covered the entire surface of my blouse with the cord, it was time to take out all those thread markings that I had done at the beginning. This was a super satisfying step and easier than I had anticipated. Once it was done, it was left looking just perfect. Okay, so now that I have finished my project, I realized there is one thing I have forgotten to do, and this is to count how many meters of this blue cord went into the project. I have had to renew my cord many times, but I'm not exactly sure how many. And like my bet is that it must be around 30 meters, but like I'm not sure at all. So here is what I'm going to do. I have some leftover cord here, and so what I'm going to do is measure everything that's in there, have a total amount of meters for this, and then I'm going to weigh it so it gives me like the weight per meter, and then weigh this one, and with a quick calculation I should have the rough figure of how many meters went in there. So let's do it. So I have now measured the entire contents of this, and it turns out it is about 35.49 meters, so about 35.5 meters. And now I just have to weigh it to see the comparison. Okay, so the final result there is that 43 meters and a half went into this. I am quite frankly surprised. I thought it would be more around like 25 or 30, but like, nope, way more. So yes, this is now the 43 meters of cord tap. it is, I hope you enjoyed watching my process. Please like and subscribe and see you next time.